So now we're going to give some life back to this walnut. And the first step is to use a dye stain.
Okay.
We're going to use a bright yellow.
Really?
Yes. It is pretty dramatic coloring.
Now, how come we're using bright yellow?
Well, we're going to give some of the brightness back to the wood.
Oh, okay.
And
okay.
because the yellow, the dye stain will color the wood fairly evenly all the way across, we'll be able to see that brightness come through. We won't necessarily see yellow, but we'll see a brightness.
Okay.
And so, because all of these products are transparent, so when the light goes through the top coat, through the glaze, through the pigment stain, through the dye stain, hits the wood, some of the colors of light are absorbed into the wood, some are reflected back to the eye, through the dye stain, through the pigment stain, through the glaze, through the top coat. And those resulting colors all give us this nice look to it where we want to see that popping walnut underneath there. Really be able to get that.
And this is really just the technique you'd use on this kiln-dried American walnut.
When it's air dried, it has a nice richness to it that it really doesn't need any help to.
Okay.
So, popsicle sticks are key to good finishing.
Can you over stir that?
No, on a dye stain, no, because there's no pigments in this. There's nothing that's down in the bottom. All this is in suspension, but I just like to make sure that it is mixed fairly nice. And you can see, even on the stick, it's fairly bright yellow.
That is bright yellow.
So I'm going to teach you how to use a foam brush now.
Awesome.
All right. I used to just be awful at using foam brushes. And then I read a great article in Fine Woodworking magazine. And I thought, boy, are they hurting for editorial comment if they have to write about a foam brush? So the author of this article said, one, you're only going to use one side of the brush.
Oh.
And so you put a dot on the brush.
Okay.
And that is always going to be up when you're using it.
Oh, okay.
He also said that most people, I was included in this, hold the handle down too low. That they're actually on this inner bevel here. You really want to hold it high so that the product flows out to the tip.
Oh. Okay. Yeah, I've definitely been using it wrong.
Yeah, and so you'll see that there's a little puffy area in here. There's actually a well or a reservoir inside of this, and it holds an incredible amount of product. So when I load up this brush, there's going to be a little hollow spot, and as I'm going along, it will deposit my product on there.
Okay.
Now when I get to the other end and want to come back, I don't flip the brush over this way because product has fallen out of here. Gravity's pulled it out. I'm just smearing what I've already put on.
Okay.
So I want to turn the brush around and head back the other way. My dot is still up.
Oh, yeah,
it's still flowing out through the bristles. Now in a long area like this, what we're going to do is pre-deposit.
Okay.
But because it's a dye, we're going to do it fairly quickly. So I'm going to load this brush up, get it fairly saturated, and now I'm going to pre-deposit. And now I'm going to come out like this.
Boy, that is yellow.
All right. That pre-depositing allows me to get it moved across there pretty quickly. And definitely one of the prerequisites for my finishing class is grubby clothes.
Right.
So you can see them. And so I've got that on there. And now with the dye stain, you don't wipe it off, you kind of blot it off. And so I'm going to take a cloth here that's clean. And where I do have little puddles, I'm just going to kind of blot like this. And that's good, and that's good. All right.
Now, why aren't you wiping it off? Because you don't want to.
I don't want to smear it really. I just want to remove the bigger puddling areas.
Okay.
So,
all right, let me try. Dot up?
yeah. And so you can use some of that to pre-deposit. Now go back to the beginning and all the way down. And then turn. Bring the handle up.
Yeah, I was already doing it wrong.
There you go. Voila.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
And then these areas here where it's
Yeah,
a little,
you have actually very good technique there, so,
look at that.
yeah.
One time, Sean.
So,
What was it about finishing that really caught your eye and your mind?
well, my grandfather was a furniture maker, and I kind of grew up working with him. And in my 20s, I kind of got bored with woodworking because it all looked the same.
Ah,
And he said, early on, he would have to make his own stains and varnishes. He says it's really the finish that people buy. And so when I started reading good books about finishing, then I'm like, oh, well, I've been doing that wrong, or oh, I've been doing that, but oh, look what else I could do. Well, then it just became, I have a finishing products and the finishing books problem. I have many books on finishing. I have many products at home that my wife is just like, oh, please, no more. I'm very grateful for her though, but she's very supportive of what I do. But on the finishing, I can just do so much, and I can make little simple tweaks. Like, oh, it's not red enough, or it's too red. I can make little tiny tweaks. With playing with all this stuff, I've learned how to do that stuff. So I really get a charge out of this. When customers see the work and they're like, oh, it looks just like the sample board. Yes, thank you. That's what I've hoped for.
yeah.
So,
It's like a little bit of an alchemist, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome.
and an artist, because you have to be able to evaluate color. So Roy G. Biv, the color wheel. It's too yellow. What's across the color wheel from yellow? Well, if something's too yellow, I'm not going to strip it down to bare wood and start over.
Right.
I might tone it with a little blue. Very light color of blue. That's going to kill the yellow. So part artist, part alchemist, your chemistry comes in there.
Yeah.
So and just being able to look at color, and part of this process here is my students will often come back and say, oh, we went to a furniture store and I saw this finish and I could see through it.
That's cool.
See, and they started with yellow on the bottom. And so they kind of know then how to build these finishes to get the colors that they're seeing then. They're just not looking at a color on the top, that there's color through this. So normally I would have probably pre-raised the grain with just clear water first, and you can kind of feel that some of the grain is raised a little bit in there. Okay. Well, that clear water, and then sand it off when it's dry, will get rid of those little dust, those little nibs that have come up there now.
Yeah, I can feel a ton of it
Pre-raised.
here.
So now what we're going to do is protect this.
Okay.
And we're going to use a shellac wash coat. So hand me that can right there. So the important thing on this is that it's wax-free shellac.
Yes.
Not all shellac is the same. The ones that say shellac on the can, they make excellent top coats. But on this, we're actually going to use it to segregate incompatible layers.
Okay.
So I'm afraid that when I come back with another color, that just the abrading action of taking off the glaze could lift the first color off.
Oh, okay.
And so when I put the shellac on there, it's alcohol-based. No water-based product or oil-based product is going to penetrate this. So it will protect what we've already put down.
Okay.
Now this is a finisher's friend.
Yeah.
All right. So in this can is a 2-pound cut of wax-free shellac.
Okay.
And that means that the shellac factory, shellac is usually in flake form.
Yep.
They took 2 pounds of flakes and they dissolved it in 1 gallon of alcohol. That's called a 2-pound cut. But we're going to make it even thinner. So we're going to add to it alcohol.
Oh, we are?
We're going to make it thinner yet. We're going to make it a 1-pound cut.
Okay.
So that means I take 1 part of this and 1 part alcohol, mix that together, and now I have what is commonly referred to as a shellac wash coat. And you can see on
SWC.
there. SWC.
Look at that.
Yeah.
It's like math.
And we're going to use those brushes.
These brushes, okay.
So these are Taclon bristle brushes. That's the style of the bristle. As you can see here, they're very, very fine filaments on there. These brushes hold an incredible amount of material too. That's the neat thing about this. And so you can get these at art supply stores. They make white and they make gold. This is the gold. The white ones are where an artist would hold a palette and draw paint in and be able to evaluate that color on the bristle, on the brush.
Okay.
Those brushes are a little expensive. because they're very pure white. The gold ones, you know, these are just for doing what we're doing here.
Gotcha.
And so I'm just going to dip that in, and you can see how it just runs up into those filaments.
Oh, yeah.
In there. And I'm just going to paint this on, get some more, come down, get some more, and kind of work. Now on this brush, I can brush back and forth, unlike the foam brush technique we used earlier. And what this is doing is when this shellac dries, and it'll be dry in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, without the aid of a heat gun.
Right, it dries really fast.
It dries very fast. This is going to protect the dye now that we've already put on here. And the shellac is naturally glossy.
I like shellac. I use that on a lot of stuff. Mostly because I like how it looks.
Yeah.
And it's really an old
Yeah, very old.
technique.
So the goal is just to get it on there fairly even. I don't have any brush marks. I don't have any big globs. Yep, yours is good here too. Okay, so now we're going to move on to glazing.
Okay, this is the seal.
Yeah, so
Right.
we've sealed it, and so that purple can there. This actually says glaze on it.
Glaze effects.
But really for finishing, glaze is more the technique.
Okay.
Because I can use anything to glaze. I can use a pigment stain or gel stain.
Oh,
A stain goes on bare wood.
okay.
A glaze goes on sealed wood. Oh. So we put a dye stain on the wood. Now we've sealed it. So now technically we're glazing.
We're glazing because the sealer's on there.
Right.
All right. So if we wanted to, we could go with this gel stain on
Right.
top of here. It would be acting as a glaze.
Right.
Look at that.
And we're actually going to use that though. Light stir. These are very heavily pigmented.
So this you could overstir.
No, it's all incorporated inside of here. So
so
I
you
just
don't
want to
have
make
to
sure
worry
I get it up off the bottom. I kind of stir and spoon it up as I do that.
Okay.
Get it around and bring those up. So get some brushes here.
Dude, just a wealth of knowledge. I've already learned so much. So many things I knew I was doing wrong, but I didn't know what I was doing wrong.
Well, I find I'm doing things wrong every day. So
Yeah, I do
I
too,
still
yeah.
learn a lot every day.
I enjoy that about
So-
life.
All right, so now on this glaze, we're actually going to put it on. We're going to let it set for a little while, and then we're going to wipe it off.
Oh,
Now, we're not going to wipe so hard that we remove it all. We want to leave some behind.
okay.
And we don't want to be really stingy with it either. We do want to put it on here.
Okay.
And again, with the brush, I'm just going to dip it in here like this.
Can I use the dot technique?
You may.
Do the same rules apply?
Often, sometimes the words are embossed, the name is embossed on there. Like you can use it that way. And so I'm going to kind of pre-deposit some of this glaze on here. And then I'm going to come across. And that pre-depositing helps get it brushed out. All right, now because it's water-based, it's going to want to set up a little bit faster than an oil-based product. Oil-based products have a little bit more open time to them, where water-based products don't. So since this glaze is water-based, we're going to just test it. And so here, I'm just going to come right down my board just on this edge here. And that's okay color. I'm going to leave it a little bit longer here to get a little bit darker. The longer we leave it on, the more chance that the vehicle, which in this case is water, has to evaporate away.
Evaporate out.
And
Okay.
it will leave behind a higher concentration of the pigments.
Pigments. Okay.
And so come to this side here. Yeah, now I'm starting to see a little bit more richness, depth of color. And so when I wipe this down, so I'm always presenting a clean portion of the rag to the wood when I wipe it off.
Why is that?
I don't want to, I want to be able to take off an even amount each time. If I
Okay.
load up the rag, I will probably not be taking off any if I just keep going across the board without changing.
Should I use a different rag?
Yes, just grab one of those over there, and we can fold that up. So here I've kind of missed a spot, and this is where I take another clean spot, and I do a little blending here. I'm just going to kind of wipe back and forth to blend that across there. And that blending kind of blends it all together then.
What do you think?
I like it.
Dude, that looks really good.
Yeah, well, we're not done yet. There's more.
I mean, it looks really nice like this.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we've given it back some of the richness of color. We've
Yeah.
given it with the yellow dye that we put on first.
Yeah, you can
we've,
totally see those yellows in there.
we've given it brightness.
Okay.
And now with the brown, we've given it back some brown with this Van Dyke brown,
Van Dyke brown, yeah.
glaze. All right. Guess what's next?
I don't know.
Another shellac wash coat.
Oh, okay.
Because
okay.
now this shellac wash coat is
It's gonna
protecting this part.
Gotcha.
Because we're going to put on another product here in a little bit.
So can I start applying
Yes,
this?
you may.
I think I have a tendency to overwork it too.
See, I always come back with just the tips and we'll tip it off. And that will help take away, because there's enough wetness in here that the alcohol will break what's already on there. And that way I can kind of get that flattened out then. It's nice having a glare. It's got the skylight up here in the shop. And I can work with that glare on there. Again, lighting is key to good finishing. Okay, so let's hit it again with a little bit of heat.
This looks all right. Does it look all right?
Yeah, I'm just gonna hit real quick here. Okay, so here's a new rag. So we fold it to the middle, fold it to the middle, fold it like that, like that. And that gives me lots of different ways to wipe, turn it around, fold it out. So now on this panel, we're not gonna put the next product on here.
No?
We're just gonna put it on those two.
Oh, from here. Oh, okay.
And so that way we'll kind of see a progression. We'll see it with just the Van Dyke brown glaze, and now we'll see it with the next glaze. And because even though the can
Candlelight.
says stain on it, because we've sealed this wood, we're technically glazing, the technique of glazing.
I got you.
All right. So I'm gonna not do this one, I'm gonna do these two here.
Okay.
Okay. And so this is a oil-based gel stain. I like gel stains for glazing because they have a lot of body to them, and they really, so they've got lots of body.
Oh, yeah, that's super thick.
So it's actually thicker than the glaze effects. And because it's oil-based, it's gonna have a longer open time.
Okay.
So it's gonna stay wetter longer. So on the first glaze we put on, we wiped it off within a minute or so. This one, we may have to let it set for a little bit longer to get some depth of color.
Ah, okay.
We need that vehicle to evaporate away,
Okay.
leaving behind a higher concentration of pigments and dyes. So if I use the same amount of time, I'm gonna, like a minute, I'm gonna get a very weak color. But if I left it on for 2 minutes, I'm gonna get a better color. So if I have a test board like this, I may say, okay, on this side, I'm gonna leave it on for a minute, and on this side, I'm gonna leave it on for 2. And that way I can see which color density I like.
Okay.
And maybe 3 and 4. All right, so I can really can control my glaze here. So again, with the foam brushes, where I put, oh, right in front. So we'll peel off the tag. I tell my students in the finishing class, because this last one was for 12 people, and we went through 10 bags of foam brushes.
Wow.
There's 10 in the bag.
Wow.
I tell my students to buy stock in the foam brush company.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm going to keep using the dot thing.
So I'll put a little dot up here. And now with this glaze, again, I'm not going to do this one.
Yep. I'm just going to
do these two. Okay. So you can see how it almost looks like pudding.
It does.
So I'm just going to put it on and get it straight back and forth like that, like that, like that. Load up some more. And so when I'm doing my test boards as well, I'm also aware of the temperature in my shop and my humidity, because I may get the approval for a color in the winter. Fairly dry in the shop in the winter. But by the time I'm done building the furniture, it might be a wet spring. So because of the extra moisture in the air, I may have to leave these products on longer for them to evaporate.
Oh, to get that same color.
Get that same density of color. Likewise, if I've done my sample board in the spring, lots of wet in there, but I don't start finishing it until the fall, furnace is on, house is dried out, I may have to really condense my times then. So I was on all my test boards or my test sheets that I keep the notes on, I will write down today's temperature was 75.
Oh, you will?
Yeah, and even though it doesn't have, it's not perfect, weatherman perfect, I have a little hydrometer, measures the humidity in the room.
Yep.
And I just use that as my reference. So today it was 72.
Right.
And the next time I need to refer to that, oh golly, it's really dry in here. It's only 56 according to this gauge.
Right.
So it's drier. So I'm going to have to really work a little bit faster here.
Oh man, you're going the extra mile.
Yeah, well,
man.
I mean,
that's awesome.
Well, you know, if you have a customer that I built an end table for, they've come back 3 years later. We've rearranged the furniture, need another end table to match that one.
Huh.
Well, I can go and pull out their sample board and say, yep, got the formula right here. And there's time and temperature, their name, the name of their project. All that is right there on a little board then.
Wow.
So I can refer back to that and say, yep, I've got my formula. I know how to finish it.
That's great.
And there's no guesswork in it.
Right.
Because there can be very disheartening. Like, what do you mean it's not the right color?
Oh, yeah.
So that way I know what my customer expects because I've got what we've done for them in the past.
Sure. Now, what are you shooting for here? This is truly what you want?
This is just more personal taste, but I'm looking for a little bit more red to it than we had in the brown. And I can actually use the earlier one here to compare. And when I can compare these two, see, I'm getting a little bit more red out of this now.
I can see, yeah.
Than that one. So I'm going to come over here and just kind of wipe this off, go to a new clean spot. See, I've got that mist area right there. I'm just going to kind of buff that in like that. So, and then come down like that. Oh, there's another mist spot, so I'm going to buff that in like that. I see people in my finishing class really grind the stain off. The goal is to leave some behind. If anything, I'm going to be a little light on how much stain I'm taking off, because I can always wipe it again. So now we're going to move to top coating, and top coating is probably for me it's what's really going to make or break a piece, because this is what people really see. They see sheen, semi-gloss, gloss, satin,
right,
and they also feel. All right, so they want to be able to feel these things, make sure that they feel right. I've generally liked using the Armor Seal. It's an oil-based urethane.
Okay.
One of the techniques that my grandfather taught me, because he wasn't a very good brusher, he always claimed, is that he would make his own urethane, or not, he'd use pine resin, turpentine, a few other ingredients to make a varnish. Well, here, fortunately, they're all mixed up. But my grandfather would brush it on, and he'd wait for the crinkle. He called it the crinkle. Then he would wipe it off.
Oh.
And so he would brush it on, let it set for a minute, use his finger and touch the wood. And the fingerprint would fill in. Nope, it's too wet. So he'd wait another minute and touch the wood, and his fingerprint would fill in. He'd wait another minute and he'd touch the wood, and his fingerprint stayed crinkly. That's the crinkle. And then he would gently wipe off the excess. So that way, if you've got a drip over the edge, or a run, or a smudge, or a puddle, you're going to wipe those off anyway.
Okay.
You can't do that with water-based top coats.
Okay.
But you can with oil-based.
With oil-based, you can. Okay.
So this is a very good brushing varnish.
Okay.
I can brush it on and leave it. It's a very good wiping varnish, where I can just take a rag, dip it in the can and wipe it. But we're going to brush it on and then wipe it off. So I get the control of a brush for the right film thickness, and then I'm going to wipe it off, and it's going to be any drips or runs or puddles.
You're wiping off.
Just gently wipe it off. And so it's actually, we're wiping it off more gently than we were with the stains and glazes.
With the glazes, okay.
We're just kind of evening it out.
Now, do we need to use a seal coat on this?
Yes, and so our first step is going to run the heat gun across this. We'll put on a shellac wash coat. So again, that protects, because we're going to be wiping this off. I don't want to be lifting and wiping any of the stain.
Okay, all right.
Because this vehicle, the oil, is similar to this.
Okay.
It'd be very easy for this to reactivate this
that, okay.
and lift it off. So we're going to put on another shellac wash coat.
Oh man, look at that.
So now see, it's got a popping richness on there.
Look at that. And you're not worried about too much product, because we're going to wipe it
I'm
down.
going to wipe it off. Yeah. So I'm just kind of lightly putting it on there. And again, having a nice bright light. A lot of people say, oh, there's some bubbles in there. Not to worry, we're going to be wiping it off anyway.
Okay.
Foam brushes are just kind of, once you get the knack of them, see I'm way up on the tip here, just really tipping that off. And so there, it's all fully covered. So now I can just wait for this to get slightly tacky. And see, my grandfather's technique was when you put your finger in it, you'll see that all filled in. All right, so I've got to wait. He called it the crinkle test.
The crinkle test, I like that.
You know, my grandfather came from Palermo, Sicily.
Really?
And he came from a very long line of furniture makers over there.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Man, look at that.
So it gives it back a richness.
Even the difference between each panel is pretty impressive.
Okay, so here, this one, my fingerprint is remained crinkly. So I'm just going to take a new clean cotton rag here and just kind of wipe off some of that excess. I've got some of my color coming too. But that way I've got, now at minimum, I'm going to put 3 coats on this for protection. If this were a wear surface, I'd probably put 5.
Oh, okay.
So like a tabletop or a chair seat, arms of chairs, a handrail, I put on 5 coats.
Okay.
With this technique. If the aprons and the legs, 3 coats is fine.
Okay.
Because they're not going to get a
You
lot
can't
of wear.
tell the difference?
No.
Huh.
Because sheen is always determined by the final coat.
Okay.
And so if I use a gloss and then come back with a satin, my sheen is satin.
Right.
If I have satin and satin, come back with a gloss, I'll have gloss. It'll be kind of a murky gloss, but it will be gloss.
Okay.
And so there's the top coat on that.
I think mine's going to take a while. There's quite a bit.
And so you can see that the brightness, let me show it to you this way, that brightness on there
Oh, yeah.
really makes that, again, pop. And when it was just this.
it's just, and look at the bottom, look at,
Yeah.
flip it, look, we went from that to that.
Yeah. So, after we get on our last coat of top coat,
Okay.
we're going to allow this to fully cure.
And how many top coats would you put on this?
If this was a wear surface, 5.
Okay.
So like a tabletop, a chair seat, 5 coats. Arms of a chair, 5 coats.
Okay.
Non-wear, 3 coats is
All right.
adequate on there. The first coat, not so much, doesn't look so good. But then as we build the top coats on there, it will really come to life then. It will really even out the tone.
All right.
Once it's fully cured, that's where we can adjust sheen, or we can do the rub out, any little dust nibs or drips or runs, we can take those out. And on the cured top coat, I always use a lubricant, like soapy water, and then a real high grit wet dry sanding paper on a firm block.
Ah,
And that way, if I do have a little drip or a puddle here with that lubricant that is going to slow the cutting action of the paper even more, I can flatten out that little drip or that little puddle.
and blend it all in.
Blend it all in
Okay.
beautifully then. And so,
And what kind of time are we looking at for a full cure?
well, on the oil-based products, I usually go anywhere from 14 to 21 days.
Really?
Yeah, because the moisture in the air, so if I'm real high humidity, it's going to be longer.
Okay.
If I'm just average humidity, about 14 days.
Okay.
Water-based products are nice because they cure a little bit faster. They're between 7 to 10, 14 days in there.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
in as little as a week in a dry atmosphere, a water-based will cure it pretty fast then.
And after it's cured, then you actually go into putting your final polish on it.
Right. And so like I've got a box here that I did a gloss on.
Whoa.
And so that's quilted maple,
Wow.
and it's a real high gloss. This was sanded with micro mesh pads up to 12,000 grit.
12,000 grit.
12,000 grit. Now the inside has a different sheen to it. That only goes to 800 grit.
That is beautiful.
And so with that gloss on there, this is, not quite a Steinway piano, but it's pretty close.
That is absolutely beautiful. Look at
So
that.
I make these boxes out of scrap from my furniture projects.
Really? Yeah, look at that finish on there. It's just absolutely beautiful. And I love how you left these rough like that.
Yeah.
What kind of finish is on this?
None.
None.
No, just pulled out. That was actually pulled out of the trash can as a dare. It was one piece of wood, thick in the center, tapered to the sides, and somebody said, "Well, make something out of this, smart man." I said, "Well, you're on." So I made hinges for this box.
That's beautiful. And is that a gloss finish or is that?
That's a gloss fit.
It is a gloss finish. Okay. Man, impressive.
Yeah. So then like we've got down here on this box, this is satin armor seal.
Same as this.
Same as this. And so that's been rubbed out. So it's nice and smooth on there.
Wow.
There's 3 coats on this. The hinges just have Danish oil, or not, boiled linseed oil on them.
Okay.
But the box itself is the satin urethane.
It's basically the same as this.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Man, that's crazy. Beautiful.
Thanks. Again, the scrap from my furniture projects.
Beautiful work.
Thanks.
Beautiful. Man, I can't thank you enough. I learned so much here.
Well, I enjoy it.
It was awesome, dude. It was
I'm
fantastic.
glad you enjoyed it.
Thanks.